What's up, people? I'm George, and this is Marvelous Statues, the show where we get to unbox and review some of the coolest statues and collectibles known to man. And on today's episode, I'm finally going to get to review the Obi-Wan Kenobi Mythos statue by Sideshow Collectibles. So this is, you've already seen me do the unboxing of this. I finally got this piece. It's one of these, I'm not going to say grails, but ones that I've been hunting for a long time. And yeah, I was so happy, so pumped to get this one a couple of weeks back. I was waiting on this lightsaber right here before I could get into the review. So now it's here. I got it all put together. So let's get into it, and I can tell you what my thoughts are on this piece. First up, right off the bat, this is an older statue. This is about a 4 to 5 year old statue by this point. It's about as long as I've been hunting him. So it's representative of Sideshow pre-digital era. This is probably right around the time that they were still doing hand sculpted. So this is a hand sculpted statue, as well as the Darth Vader that I have from the Mythos line. And I think it's fantastic. One of my favorite things about it is that it's a hand sculpted piece, is because I feel like it connects me a little bit with the sculptor. You know, it has like an old worldly type of feel to it, which I think is cool. So I got this secondhand. I got this off of another collector who took pretty good care of it. It came in nice shape. It was only missing the shipping box, but it came with everything else. So one of the things that I thought was kind of cool about it was that that when I got it here, you know, there was some dust on it and everything, and I was, you know, brushing it off with my duster and hitting it with the aerosol can, and it made me feel like I was uncovering some kind of relic. So so I thought that was kind of cool. So what's special about this statue? Why did I hunt this thing for so long? So there are a lot of cool things that Sideshow included with this piece, and we'll get into exactly what that is. You have, first of all, an art print that sides for a certificate of authenticity, and I think it's really cool the way they did the design on this one. You know, he has the desert nomad look about him. I like the idea of having the cloak over him with the goggles. Would have been kind of cool to have that as an option on the statue, but I'm all right with it like this. So I think this would look good, you know, framed behind it. So eventually, at some point, I hope I have space enough to do that. Vader also came with an art print as well. So, you know, I think that's a nice touch that I wish that they would bring back. You know, so it's something that was really cool. All right. So let's see what else. So the statue came with an optional portrait of the Ewan McGregor look, you know, a little bit older, but this is basically his look as he left it in Revenge of the Sith, you know, episode 3. You know, you have the optional portrait for the Alec Guinness look, you know, from A New Hope. You have a hand that is without lightsaber, and you have a hand that's with the lightsaber. So those were your options. Now the statue on the outside of the box, the art box, and I think on the art print it even shows it. It showed this lightsaber attached to his belt. That didn't come with the statue. I was a little bit disappointed with that. I thought that it was part of it, but I found out that Sideshow had it, I guess, in the prototype, and then they decided not to do it. I don't know why they did that. I think that was a bad choice. But thankfully, there was a guy out there that was making these options, and he still had a few left, so I was able to get it. So I think that was kind of cool, and I could have it looking the way it looks in the picture. So let's talk about the statue. So the Star Wars Mythos line is Sideshow's interpretation of these characters from the Star Wars universe. So this is not necessarily, you know, the characters as they were seen in the movies. They're not. You know, this is Sideshow's storytelling that they throw into the whole mythos of Star Wars, and they brought us these pieces. So this is Obi-Wan Kenobi right here, probably between episode 3 and episode 4, you know, Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, during his time that he's wandering the desert, you know, following Luke Skywalker from a distance and watching over him. So that's the idea here. And what I really love about the composition of this piece is that Sideshow chose to take and put a bunch of souvenirs, you know, around Obi-Wan that would remind us of his past, which I think that is really cool. It's also not really fitting of a Jedi Knight, you know, if you think about it. It's because I think that you know, part of the thing of being a Jedi Knight is that you're not supposed to hold on to souvenirs and things like that. But he would have had to held on to some things, obviously, you know, because he gave Luke Skywalker, you know, his father's lightsaber, so he held on to that at least. But, you know, overall, I think that, you know, Jedis are not supposed to hold on to things, right? You know, but still, I think it's really cool that they decided to come up with this concept. So you have things on his book bag, you know, like the Clone Wars armor, you know, bantha sticks from the Sand People. You have a rifle here, and then you have the lightsabers of Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin Skywalker, you know, before he passed it on. So I think that's really awesome what they did there. So working away from the bottom up, the base of the Mythos line is always the same across all of them. You have this very simple, very elegant looking base, but each one of them has its own little thing that I've come to see. So Darth Vader's base, for example, was much more clean and metallic looking, you know, very it gives you that idea of the Empire, you know, so it has that gray metal look about it. And I'll bring that out later so you can see a comparison, the two of them side by side and how they stand up next to each other. So here on the Obi-Wan, it has kind of like a dirt, windswept, you know, weathered appearance to it. So it's brown. It feels like it has sand all over it, and that's the idea that they did with this. And then moving up, you know, you have the sand from Tatooine. So, you know, it has some very nice texture work in there, very good shading going on, which I think is fantastic. You know, it looks really good for what the scene is. I do feel that Vader's has a lot more color involved in it. But, you know, this one looks really cool. So then you have Obi-Wan here, and he's walking through the desert. I really love the way they did the boots. It has this leather appearance to them, has weathered, also weathered look. So the paint has, you know, dark browns and, you know, lighter browns to give that effect. You know, you have this wrapping up here at the top, which comes right off, which is nice because it feels like the wind is blowing in that direction. And I really like how they did that with the whole cloak and everything too. So it feels like the sands are just pushing across them. So I think that's really cool. Texture in the pants is nice, you know, gives it a nice contrast against the brown, especially with the two colors. Looks very much like the Jedi tunic, you know, that he wears at the end of the Revenge of the Sith. So, you know, that's done very nicely as well. The upper part of the tunic has a little bit more texture, a little bit more weathering to it. So, you know, there's some tethered edges, you know, and then that separates it from the pants, which I think is done nicely. And then up where the belt is, again, gives you that nice leather appearance to it. So the lightsaber, as I stated before, was not included with the original statue. So that was not something you can get. This lightsaber here was created. It has a look of both the original New Hope style lightsaber and kind of the lightsaber from Revenge of the Sith. There was a difference between the two of them. There are videos out that show the difference between the two of them. I do plan on getting an Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber to display along with it because I think that would go nicely with this piece. So the cloak is done very cool. I love how it's blown across like that. This is all sculpted, which I think is really neat. Love sculpted pieces. And this just has a lot of energy with that cloak. I think it's really cool. It also makes for a very, you know, wide statue. So you have to consider that when you're displaying him in a Besta. He's going to be sitting to one side of the Besta and the cloak is going to be blowing over onto one side. Especially when you decide to display him with the lightsaber. So if you switch out this hand and you put the lightsaber in, you know, it extends his reach out even more, so it makes it even a wider statue to have it like that. I like the idea of including the lightsaber ignited. They did the same thing with the Darth Vader statue. I just chose not to do it. It's because inside of the Besta, it's a little bit difficult to display it with both ends, with the cape, with the cloak blowing that way, and then you have the lightsaber. So I think that's the difference there. Now, when you take a closer look at the lightsaber here, this is the A New Hope lightsaber. So you can see that the difference in the hand here, where you have this clip on the side of the handle, that's a little bit different there. The sculpt of the lightsaber looks a little mangled, you know, when you look at it. So like the back of the pommel doesn't look like a circle, kind of looks like an oval. You know, it's definitely a hand sculpted piece. So, you know, it's something that, you know, some people may complain about. In my opinion, I feel that this is what you would expect when you're sculpting something this small, you know, by hand. You know, and I think that that's kind of cool. You know, a little bit, you know, it makes me feel like, again, this old worldly feel about this is because if this was done digitally, this would probably be exact. So I really love how that came out, actually. It's kind of neat. Hands are done really cool. It has a, you know, weathered appearance to it. Nails look really good, you know, and then you have this really awesome looking glove that he's wearing on both of these hands. You know, nice texture work on that. So I think that looks great. So the really, you know, the part that really sets this thing off is this backpack that he has. So you have the bantha sticks, you know, again, they look like wood, and you have this rope that holds it here on the sides. You got a grappling hook here with some rope. I don't necessarily know how he would need that in the desert, but, you know, maybe, you know, you have to climb some mountain, possibly. They do have some mountains in Tatooine, so it's possible. You know, you have the lightsabers of, you know, Anakin and Qui-Gon Jinn, which I think is really cool, you know, showing that he has the lightsaber of his master and then of his apprentice, you know, and he's going to pass that on to Luke Skywalker, right? So I think that's cool. You have some bantha skin right here. I think the texture work here is done really cool. So I think, you know, he would use that like as a mat or like some kind of bedding for himself, you know, and strapped to the bottom of it. And then you have his clone armor here up on the sides, which I think is done really cool. You know, has a weathered appearance to it, has all kinds of scratches and dents in it. So you know that, you know, he wore this during the Clone Wars. So I think that's done really cool. So, you know, love that. Really do. So the goggles is something that you see in the picture where he's actually wearing them. You can't actually put the goggles on him, you know, because they're meant to attach in here on his cloak. I've tried to put it over the face. It would stretch too much, so you could break it. So don't do that. Would be cool though if they made it so that you could put the goggles on, because I think that'd be kind of neat, you know, considering that it looks like the dirt is just hitting him from the sandstorm that he's possibly walking through. So that's neat. So then the last part of it is the portraits, which I think both of them are done fantastically. The optional portrait here is the Ewan McGregor look from Revenge of the Sith, and it caught, you know, when you put it on, I like that he's looking in a different direction. So it gives you the option to display him looking in that direction if you wanted to. I think it has a nice appearance of a resemblance of Ewan McGregor, a little bit aged. So I think that's done really nicely. You know, his hair looks like there's been dirt put in from the wind. You know, it's been sand blown. He does have a little more color in his hair. So I think that looks cool. So I think in this particular case, the portraits look much better than the Darth Vader portraits. I felt that the Vader portraits looked very similar to each other. So it was hard to tell the difference between the older version of Anakin and then the younger version of Anakin, like they were trying to go with. But on this one, you really can tell the difference between the two of them. So again, this is the Ewan McGregor look. Now the one that I go with is the Alec Guinness appearances, because this is how I remember him from when I started watching the movies. This is the Obi-Wan that I grew up with. So I think that's cool. This one has a little bit more gray in the hair. You know, it has that Alec Guinness nose. You know, he's a little more aged. You know, a little more weathered. You know, so you have that look about him. His head is looking in a different direction, so it gives you a different feel for him when he's displayed this way. So I think that's cool. So yeah, man, I'm, you know, still really stoked that this piece came in. It's fantastic. It's something that I would, you know, definitely suggest you guys pick up if you're a big Star Wars fan. This is definitely the Star Wars statues to get if you're going to get them. These are 1/5 scale statues. They're not 1/4. So they're not quite as big as the 1/4 scale statues. So that's something to consider if you're big on having 1/4 scale. I myself don't care. I like statues for the art of it. Doesn't care if they're small, big, or super big. You know, so it just matters if it looks good. You know, and that's my opinion. I think that this is one of the best of the Star Wars line. So definitely recommend picking it up. All right, so before I get out of here, I wanted to give you guys a look at the two of them side by side if you hadn't seen them. So this one here is raised obviously because of the Lazy Susan. So it gives him just, you know, maybe a 1/2 inch in height. So you can see that Vader stands much taller than him. So they are scaled pretty proportionally. The bases themselves line up, you know, right on cue, right on the height. So I think there's no difference in height there on the bases. So I think they look really good. So I think these pieces will display fantastically together. That's why I got them. And yeah, this Mythos line, definitely, I can't recommend this thing enough. So the next hunt for me would probably be Boba Fett. So I think Boba Fett's going to be where I'm going next. And we'll see how long it takes for me to get that one. This one took about 4 years, 5 years almost to pick up. So hopefully it's not quite that long. All right, guys, so that's my thoughts on the Obi-Wan Kenobi Mythos statue by Sideshow Collectibles. You know, like I stated earlier, this is an older piece, so, you know, there's probably some reviews out there for you guys to check out. I know there's quite a few of them. I looked at them myself, so definitely check those guys out so you can see some comparisons about the way I think about it. Maybe they have some different opinions about it that you can get if you're looking to pick this one up. He is going for quite a bit, you know, compared to what he used to go for, what he came out for initially. This used to be a $400 statue when it first came out. I think it was like right around $395, right around there, maybe $350. Right now, this thing's going for well over $1,000. So, you know, keep that in mind if you're looking to pick this one up now. But, you know, in my opinion, I think that the statue is fantastic. So do what you can. You know, if you can afford it, go for it. You know, if you want to wait and, you know, be patient like I was, try to do so, because you might be able to get one for a little bit better price. So that's my suggestion to you if you are looking to pick this piece up. So thank you guys for joining me for the review of the Obi-Wan Kenobi statue. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and if you're new here, please hit subscribe and ding that bell to get notified when we come out with more videos like this, as we're coming out with them pretty often. You can catch more of our videos from Statue Fanatic, from Seth and What's Poppin' at mcecentral.com, as well as a wealth of information on collecting, movies, video games, and all kinds of other geek stuff. It's because that's what we like talking about. So definitely head over to that website to check all the stuff we got. So we're going to come out with you with more videos just like this one. So stay tuned for all of that. Until next time, guys, keep marvelous.